The year was 2011. Across the Middle East and North Africa, a wave of unrest was shaking the foundations of authoritarian regimes. This was the Arab Spring, a season of hope and upheaval. In Syria, a similar story was about to unfold, one that would plunge the nation into a brutal and protracted civil war. The seeds of discontent had been sown long before the protests erupted. Decades of authoritarian rule under the Assad regime had stifled political dissent and created deep-seated grievances among the population. Economic woes, coupled with a crippling drought that had devastated rural communities, added fuel to the fire. The Syrian people, yearning for freedom and a better life, watched as their neighbors rose up against their own oppressors. The winds of change were blowing, and Syria would soon find itself caught in the storm. The Syrian uprising began in the southern city of Dara in March 2011. Inspired by the Arab Spring uprisings in Tunisia and Egypt, a group of schoolchildren armed with nothing but spray paint and a yearning for change, painted anti-government slogans on a school wall. Their act of defiance, met with swift and brutal repression by the Syrian security forces, ignited a firestorm of protests that quickly spread across the country. The regime's response was swift and merciless, unleashing a wave of violence against its own people. Peaceful demonstrations calling for democratic reforms were met with live ammunition. As the death toll mounted, the protests morphed into armed rebellion, and Syria descended into a full-blown civil war. The year 2011 marked not just the beginning of the uprising, but also the unraveling of a nation. The conflict in Syria quickly escalated into a complex and multifaceted war, drawing in regional and global powers. In August 2013, the world watched in horror as the Syrian government, under the command of President Bashar al-Assad, launched a chemical weapons attack on the Ghouta suburbs of Damascus. Hundreds of civilians, including children, were killed in the attack, prompting international condemnation and raising fears of a wider regional conflict. This marked a turning point in the war, further radicalizing the opposition and drawing in external actors with their own agendas. Adding another layer of complexity to the conflict, the extremist group ISIS, or Islamic State of Iraq in Syria, exploited the chaos to seize control of large swaths of territory in Syria and neighboring Iraq in 2014. The rise of ISIS, with its brutal ideology and reign of terror, added a new dimension of horror to the Syrian war, further destabilizing the region and sending shockwaves across the globe. Section 4. A global chessboard. Foreign powers fuel the fire. The Syrian civil war rapidly transformed into a proxy war, with regional and global powers backing opposing sides and further fueling the flames of conflict. Russia, a long-standing ally of the Assad regime, intervened militarily in 2015, bolstering Assad's forces and tipping the balance of power in his favor. Iran, another key ally of Assad, also provided significant military and financial support, deploying its own forces and those of its regional proxies, including Hezbollah, to fight alongside the Syrian army. On the other side of the conflict, the United States, along with its European and Arab allies, provided support to various rebel groups opposed to the Assad regime. However, this support was often fragmented and inconsistent, lacking a cohesive strategy to counter the Assad regime and its allies. The involvement of these external actors, each with their own geopolitical interests, turned Syria into a battleground for a larger power struggle, prolonging the conflict and exacerbating the suffering of the Syrian people. Section 5. Behind enemy lines, the human cost of war. As the war raged on, it was the Syrian people who bore the brunt of the violence and destruction. Millions were forced to flee their homes, becoming refugees or internally displaced within their own country. Cities and towns were reduced to rubble, and the country's infrastructure lay in ruins. The war had a devastating impact on the Syrian economy, plunging millions into poverty and exacerbating existing inequalities. The cost of basic necessities skyrocketed, while access to healthcare, education, and other essential services became increasingly limited. The Syrian people, caught in the crossfire of a brutal and unforgiving war, faced unimaginable hardships. They endured displacement, hunger, disease, and the loss of loved ones. Their resilience in the face of such adversity was a testament to the human spirit, but the scars of this conflict would run deep for generations to come. Section 6. A lifeline in the rubble. The World Food Programme's struggle. Amidst the chaos and carnage, humanitarian organizations faced an uphill battle to deliver aid and assistance to those most in need. The World Food Programme, a leading organization in the fight against hunger, played a critical role in providing food assistance to millions of Syrians affected by the conflict. However, the WFP's efforts were often hampered by the ongoing violence, bureaucratic hurdles, and a lack of funding. The organization faced immense challenges in reaching those trapped in besieged areas or those who had fled to neighboring countries. Despite these challenges, the WFP remained committed to its mission, providing a lifeline to millions of Syrians struggling to survive. The organization's work, alongside that of other humanitarian actors, provided a glimmer of hope in the darkness, a testament to the enduring power of human compassion in the face of unimaginable suffering.